At UFC 271 in Houston, Texas, Israel Adesanya beat Robert Whittaker for the second time and retained his UFC middleweight title. Known by his fans as the last stylebender, Adesanya didn't knock out Whittaker like in their first encounter, but it was clear that he dominated the match. So stay tuned and don't go away because fans are asking, what's next for Israel Adesanya? First up, what was the fallout from UFC 271? Let's have a look. Also on the card at UFC 271 was Jared Cannonier, who rose to the #1 contender spot after beating Derek Brunson via knockout in an explosive match. Following UFC 271, all eyes are now on the UFC's middleweight division, and fans are wondering who can beat Adesanya and what will come of Robert Whittaker. For many observers, the most obvious choice is Adesanya versus Cannonier. Cannonier beat Brunson, and even UFC Dana White thinks that Cannonier is the true contender for the UFC middleweight title. Adesanya, of course, is more than happy to face Cannonier in June. After losing to Whittaker at UFC 254 in 2020, Cannonier won 2 fights in a row and stands at 5 wins, 1 loss in his last 6 fights. And Cannonier ended Brunson's 5-fight win streak. Clearly, Cannonier is ready for a title shot. Cannonier took out Brunson in impressive fashion, and Strickland, who beat Jack Hermanson and is on a 6-fight win streak. Strickland believes he is ready for a title opportunity and is willing to fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. Strickland is ranked 6th in the division after impressive wins over Hermanson and Uriah Hall. But can he beat Whittaker? If he can, it'll make him a key middleweight contender. Next up, if not Strickland, who is Whittaker's next logical fight? Let's take a look. The next logical fight for Whittaker would be to face off against Marvin Vettori. Both fighters are ranked high in the middleweight division. Vettori, who Adesanya beat in June at UFC 263, rebounded by beating former contender Paulo Costa in October. Vettori has 6 wins, 1 loss in his last 7 fights, and is determined to prove that he has what it takes to remain a title contender. If Whittaker wants a third fight between him and Adesanya, then beating Vettori would be the first step in doing so. In a recent interview, Whittaker said, "A third fight between me and Izzy is inevitable. I am going to stomp everyone who comes in front of me again. That's why he said, I'll be seeing you in the future. I don't see him losing the belt anytime soon. He is good, but I think I am the person to beat him. My mission stays the same. Beat the next guy in front of me. I'm at the top of the pile, but I want to be higher." At the time of this recording, however, Vettori does not have a fight lined up. If Strickland gets the fight against Whittaker, Brunson could be next in line. Brunson is ranked 4th, has 5 wins, 1 loss in his last 6 fights, and can still be an intimidating contender if he keeps putting pressure on the middleweight division. Up next, who will UFC flyweight Priscila Cachoeira face off against at UFC Vegas 49? Let's find out. Brazilian UFC flyweight Priscila Cachoeira will enter the octagon and square off against Ji-Yeon Kim at UFC Vegas 49. Cachoeira lost her previous bout to Jillian Robertson by rear naked choke at UFC 269 back in December. Robertson's win over Cachoeira was overshadowed by the fact that Cachoeira was caught in the choke. She attempted to claw Robertson's eyes. Cachoeira's attempts at eye gouging did not injure Robertson. Cachoeira faced criticism for her attempted eye gouges from observers across the spectrum: fans, media, fighters, and UFC brass. In a recent interview, Cachoeira surprisingly defended her actions and said she went for Robertson's eyes without thinking. Cachoeira said, "Mistakes happen, and it was automatic. I didn't mean to do that, but as soon as I left the cage, I said sorry to her. I apologized to her, and I'm sure it's not going to happen again. I didn't like people saying I should be cut from the UFC. I didn't, but especially from other UFC fighters because they know how hard it is to be here, how hard we've got to work to train, to cut weight on a fight week. I didn't like." Cachoeira first debuted for the UFC back in 2018 against Valentina Shevchenko. While fighting Shevchenko, she suffered one of the most brutal beatings ever witnessed in the UFC. Cachoeira took such a beating in that fight that referee Mario Yamasaki has not worked at UFC ever since. So, despite her mistake, it's clear that Cachoeira is one tough cookie. Stay tuned and don't go away because we're bringing you the latest UFC news. Next up is the notorious Conor McGregor getting closer to making his UFC return? You're about to find out. In a recent interview, McGregor spoke of his injuries And when asked how he was feeling, he said, "Very good. I'm getting there day by day. Day by day, I feel better. They're telling me to just take it easy, but I feel I can go, so I just need to kind of pull the reins back on my own self." So that's kind of what I'm doing. McGregor, now 33, is rehabilitating his left leg after suffering brutal fractures of both his tibia and fibula after his crushing defeat at the hands of Dustin Poirier at UFC 264 in July of 2021. The notorious and former two-division UFC champion said he expects to be able to resume his training within the next few months. McGregor said, "April, they said I can spar again and I can box again, basically. So I'm just going to take it day by day. Hopefully now, once I get back to sparring, I'll know weight, I'll know feel, I'll know my own style." You know what I mean? I'm going to develop a different style, I'd imagine, so I'd be shadowboxing a bit lately, and I feel like I'm just getting the bearing of myself. But I feel good. I'm grounded on my feet. I can start and stop and take off. It's just a little twists or a torque I've just got to be careful on. But this will be a here today, gone tomorrow type of thing in my own head. The bone will recover. It'll connect back to itself, and it'll be like it never happened. Up next, what if the Notorious does return? Who is he likely to fight? Let's find out. Both McGregor's fights against Poirier in 2021 were contested at 155 pounds, and the Notorious said he isn't sure yet which weight he'll compete at for his UFC comeback, but he's guessing he'll fight at either lightweight or welterweight. He also offered a word of advice to Oliveira, who's set to defend his UFC title against Justin Gaethje on May 7th at UFC 274, but has called out McGregor in the past. Truth is, Oliveira would love to fight against McGregor. The Notorious said, "If your man's wise, he might give it another month or two. July seems okay for me. I can't say too early, but July, if I'm sparring in April, May, June, July, I could slap the head off of most of these guys at the end of April." McGregor lost 2 fights in a row, and 3 of his last 4 fights. With that said, he's still the biggest star and most lucrative pay-per-view draw MMA has ever had, and a matchup between Oliveira and McGregor would clearly be a big draw. If I had to guess though, Oliveira would probably mop the floor with the Notorious right now. Some insiders think McGregor is washed up hype, has lost his edge, and can't compete with the UFC's top-tier talent. Finally, does McGregor's current mindset shed light on his ability to be competitive in the future? Let's dig a little deeper. The best way to figure out what's going on inside McGregor's head is to listen to his most recent comments to the media. Recently, McGregor said, "I just want to compete. I know that I'm one of the best in the world. I don't have to prove that. I am that. Man, I'm the double champ. I went to the different sport. I came back. I know that. I don't have to prove that. I know that. So it's just about getting back in, competing, getting myself into pristine condition, and going in and enjoying myself again, putting on a show for the fans. That's it." It's clear that his ego has not dissipated, but it remains unclear if he can compete with the new crop of brutally tough fighters in the UFC. In other remarks, McGregor said, "Once I get the leg cleared and I get that feeling of myself when I kick a body, when I step back in and out and I get that feel of it, then I'll be able to gauge time. And then I'm going to isolate myself. I'm going to stay away from the pub. I'm going to stay away from my delicious Forge Irish Stout, from my tasty, smooth, proper Irish whiskey, and I'm going to dedicate myself to my craft 100%. And give it a month or 2 of that and see how everything goes, and then make the move." The Notorious is doing what he does best, talking. Time will tell how full of talk he is. One thing is clear though, to his credit, he does seem to have a well-laid plan. What do you think? Have we seen the last of the Notorious? Can he make a comeback and be on top of the world again, or has his opportunity sailed away like a ship out of the Dublin port? That's a wrap for today's video. Thanks for watching.